Hello everyone, I'm Lex from Dead Gentry Collectibles and William is here as
Hello.
well. This video is a slide video, not a live action, and as I sip my tea, as we sit here with the humidifier on, talking about how to improve, how to expand your knowledge of antiques, of vintage goods in general. So first, go handle antiques. Because when you pick things up, you get to know them. It's a real thing.
Makes sense.
That's the printer resetting.
Just make sure they're not in a museum. Thank you, printer. You're doing a great job.
Oh my gosh, it's still going. What is it cycling? Okay, anyway, so when you experience old and beautiful things, in history, in art, when you actually handle them, when you actually view them, when you do things like go to museums, I feel like you get to know the character of the object a little bit. Is that a weird thing to say? So one of the best ways to do that is to go look at these things and handle these things. There are a bunch of different ways to go about that. You could go to antiques dealer school.
You could?
You could. That's a real thing, and some people might not know that. You can learn about the decorative arts. So even interior design could teach you quite a bit. But the decorative arts historically as well is going to help you with things like antique furniture. So that could mean reading lovely books on the subject. It could mean attending collection showings. Sometimes there's community showings. Sometimes there's estate showings. Going to museums. Watching appraisers. Watching auction houses. Like Antiques Roadshow, honestly.
It's a great resource.
Is a great way to learn. But also, you could even look at like antique and auction content online. There are so many online places where you can browse as a possible shopper.
Yep.
And there's so much information on. So I would say go to the better, more vetted sites. Don't rely on eBay to learn about antiques.
Yeah.
Think more Sotheby's, that sort of thing. First Dibs sometimes has some very lovely like French antiques, like even from the 1600s with quite a bit of information. So you can do that, and you could put like the Sotheby's app on your phone as well. And people, I could never do that. Yes, you can. You don't even have to buy anything.
Right.
You can watch their auctions through the app. You can see what they list. They do beautiful articles on modern and antique art. When they're doing collections of art at auction, they release them. You can read about all the different auctions inside of the app. It sends it to your phone. So you don't necessarily have to buy something to have the Sotheby's app on your phone and learn from it.
Super helpful.
You can watch and learn about fine art, fine objects from anyone that sells them. Anyone. You could go to galleries. You could go to art galleries. You can go to vintage and antique shops and talk to the dealers. Talk to the people on site or in the gallery. Absolutely. So like the proprietors, even of a vintage store.
Yeah.
Or if it's run by multiple booth owners. There might be a booth that just does vintage Redline Hot Wheels. Talk to that toy collector. Talk to the person selling those objects. You can learn about them. That is an endless cache of information for people.
For sure.
That I think a lot of people pass up the opportunity to go do that. Sorry, I'm going to sip my tea.
No, it makes sense. Go to the experts because they've likely become experts in their booth, in their fields.
Yeah, or in their favorite obsession. Yeah, whatever they're collecting.
Yep.
So, and there's so much that, how do you say this as politely as possible? The lay person might think they know, but really don't. So it's just when it comes to people who haven't educated themselves yet in antiques and vintage objects, not everyone goes to antique dealer school or spends a lot of time doing this stuff.
Yeah.
So they might not be able to tell, like, let's say you're talking about antique French furniture, the difference between an original period piece and a later machine-made copy of that original, which is a reproduction, a reinterpretation of the origin earlier design. most people that I know cannot tell the difference easily, especially if an object has been faux aged or is a faux recreation. It can be difficult.
Yeah.
So a way around that is to go look at the actual ones or go learn about them. Absolutely. So antique furniture specifically, for instance, and just talk about this for a little bit on the video, I guess. That's kind of what the video is about. Right. When we talk about antique furniture and antiques, overwhelmingly, we're referring to that as professionals. It doesn't mean anything old or anything 100 years or more. When you're talking with actual antique furniture dealers, it means more this very exalted period of objects from a very specific time period, usually from the 1500s to the mid 1800s. So only like 1850. There's like a 3 to 8 year window in there, but right. Anything from the Renaissance to the mid 19th century, although generally it's more difficult to find pieces of value from the 16th and 17th centuries when it comes to furniture. We don't sell a lot of furniture online. Right. Furniture selling online is not. So when you I'm like tripping over my tongue here. If you're shopping in one of our online public shops, like Dead Gentry on Etsy or Mercari or one of these, you're not going to see our furniture knowledge there. Exactly. Unless you're coming to one of our physical spaces with antique French furniture in it. So, but this is something, we know a lot about a lot of things, not just the things that we sell publicly online. So, most everything from the 1800s forward has been industrialized in one way or another. A part of it will be machine made, or many of them will have been made, or some part of the process will have been sped up or made easier. And that's kind of the problem. That's why we say like mid 1800s, because at that point everything becomes industrialized. So that isn't to say that other old furniture isn't antique furniture, meaning 100 years old or older. It just means that when someone in the industry, when an actual dealer in a gallery is referring to antique furniture, that's not necessarily what they mean. They're talking about desirable, valuable pieces that are originals, that would be discussed in that way by other appraisers or other dealers and traders. Makes sense. So, again, the 1500s, mid 1800s defines a section of manufacture history where making furniture became this incredibly... Well, so again, it's like, well, why is that so much more important than the industrialized stuff? Or why is it so much more desirable or valuable? It was a time in history where creating these objects became some of the most skillfully and artistically achieved, like in that craft or in that part of the visual arts. You just see these incredible things, just very worthy pieces being produced, hand-produced, hand-carved, handmade, beautiful artistic pieces at like the height of design. And yet, so it's still pre-industrialization where things like profit, speed, mass creation hadn't really entered the markets and taken over yet. Right. So there was also more room to achieve more because everything was being done well. And therefore, in order to you had to make it by hand because nothing was industrialized yet. And it was seen as a passion art. People were doing it on purpose. Yeah. So it's... I'm kind of going off on furniture a lot. But almost everything you see commonly today is post-industrial mimics. Generally, poor faded copies, representations of what was once this incredible decorative art form. And in that kind of furniture, like a piece of French furniture from the 1600s achieved an excellence that the modern world and post-industrial culture simply doesn't lend itself to any longer. Okay. Hence the term antique furniture. Why we don't just call it old furniture or furniture of that era or something. It's an antique because it's valuable. And it's a glimpse through time and these like triumphs of really amazing works of art, sometimes hand-turned wood and incredible things. So if you want to buy objects, to return kind of more to the subject on hand, of the highest value, both present and future, and the best pedigree, best provenance, knowing the difference between the two, something like an original and something like a reproduction, okay, or a replicate, or a faux, an actual fake, where it's not even intending to replicate anything well, but instead is intending to falsify what it is.
Yeah.
There are two ways to go about that, I would say. Educate yourself. That's what I was talking about at the top of the video.
Yeah.
That's one way to go about it. Educate yourself. Get to know it yourself, and you're going to know what you're looking at. The other way is to find someone who has that education and rely on them. So those are the two options. Yeah. And when it comes to finding someone else, that's a reputable dealer. That's an appraiser. That's a firm, a known and respected firm, or house, a roof of antiques. So very often collectors do have an education in their preferred, genre or category of objects, whatever it may be. It might be vintage Pokemon cards from the 90s. It doesn't all have to be like Italian Renaissance carved wood.
Exactly.
But even when a collector, an established collector, knows a great deal about one category or two categories, if they want to expand on that or go into something else, they're generally not going to have the time to do so.
Okay.
Because it takes a long time. The people what they do is dedicate themselves to educating themselves in that thing. Whereas we dedicate ourselves to educating ourselves in like a broader field. Yeah. They're choosing one thing, which honestly, then those collectors that do that will be more knowledgeable in that thing than I will be. That's just how, like, if I were to just focus on just one type of object forever, I would be the most knowledgeable person in that field. But it doesn't lend itself to knowledge about other things very well.
Right.
So, and then there's other reasons too. So it's not just always a knowledge-based reason. So what's another reason you'd need to reach out to a dealer? Sometimes dealers, even when you're a collector, even when you're highly educated in what you're trying to collect, your 1980s Hot Wheels toys, and you know more about them than any firm out there, you might not have the network or the associates in place to make those trades, find those pieces, and make that happen, even though you're the most knowledgeable in the field. Yeah. So a good dealer, it's their profession to have those associations, those networks in place, and then to bring them to market to collectors who want them. Yeah. So that's another great reason to reach out. I feel like this video is going to turn a little bit into talking about and I'll discuss it a little bit. People get scared of the idea of working with a dealer or working with an appraiser. It's almost like this elitist classism thing. Mm-hmm. But so I feel like I just need to say there's good reasons. Yeah. A good dealer may have established a continent's worth of relationships with other dealers necessary to gain access to certain estates and auctions that the public may not be offered. Many living estate and auction collection sales are by invitation only. That's not something the average collector is going to have access to. Why isn't the public? Well, because sometimes a large living estate doesn't want that much foot traffic. It might damage items, might put the items at risk in other ways, and they might just not have the employees on site to deal with a heavy ingress of public foot traffic. It helps them operate more smoothly overall. Established antique patrons can be helped better in a shorter period of time. Yeah. Many fine object sales are by appointment only. You see this everywhere, not just in antiques and vintage goods. If you go to a Baccarat gallery, even for contemporary pieces, very often fine galleries of fine objects are by appointment only. And there's a reason for that. And it's kind of the same reason sometimes you have to rely on a dealer who already has those relationships and gets invited to these places. Exactly. So a dealer in a firm, or a firm, you don't need both, a dealer from a firm, it gives you access to those kind of events, those kind of objects that you might not otherwise have an ability to buy or bid on at auction yourself. There are people that send, I'm blanking on the word, but basically someone to stand in their stead at auctions and auction and bid for them in person, by phone, proxies. So there's another great reason you might need a dealer or a firm. Okay. Just to reach out to one to give you that help. You might not be, there might be 2 auctions on the same day at the same time in different states. You need a proxy. Yeah. Even if you can get on the plane and travel to one, you can't get to the other one, and maybe you want both objects. That's a way to do that. Established dealers like William and I, we also sort through, and all dealers like us, at different demographics, at different levels of like financial ingress. So, maybe it's like $40 vintage objects from a booth or being sold on eBay to $4,000, Candlebras from Renaissance. It's like, it could be, it doesn't really matter. Any kind of dealer that's worth their salt could be going to up to 1,500 estate sales a year in a slow year. Yeah. They could be, like, honestly, the number may be higher than that. It depends. There's times we've gone to 10 estate sales in a day. Yeah. But then that you don't necessarily go to one every day. So it's hard to do the math specifically. But any antique or vintage dealer that's really has their nose to the grindstone, is that like an appropriate way to say? That is doing the work, doing the pavement pounding. Yeah, they're going to actively be searching for these things and having to find things that would take the average person a cost prohibitive amount of money, time, and effort to find and then buy. Right. So that's another reason, even when you buy from our shop, believe it or not. So let's say one of our patrons is listening. When you buy from our little Etsy shop, our humble little, it's like 500 objects at most weeks. You're working with a dealer because what you have then done is you've patronized an item from William and I. We are dealers and we have brokered that item to you through attending estate sales and auctions. We brought them to market in a public feasible way so that you could then choose from them, from your dealer's assortment. So you're already working with a dealer. I just feel like sometimes people get very skittish about the idea of an antiques firm or working with an antiques dealer or working with an appraiser. You're already doing it. Yeah. If you're even buying an antique on eBay from, I don't know, somebody who only sells you, that person for that moment was an antiques dealer and you were working with them. They procured the item for you and you chose it. Exactly. So another good reason, we evaluate. So even if you have the education in your objects, even if you don't need a proxy to go places for you to attend these things, even if somehow you think you can gain access to these objects when it's not your main profession and you don't have the relationships or networks in place to do so, even if you're clearing all those hurdles, individuals like William and I handle thousands and thousands of objects. Like, to be sold and not to be sold. Exactly. That's key as well. Yeah. So what's the best way? So it's like one object maybe in 250 or 400 on a bad day when the estate lots aren't great, that gets brought back to market by us after being looked at. When you're looking at curated vintage or antique objects from a dealer, whether it's a booth or at Sotheby's, you're getting to look at the needle in the haystack that they found. That's really what's going on. That dealer or that representative of that firm is found for you these objects, which takes a huge knowledge base to sort out of other objects that are not valuable. Yeah. And then if you're like at their gallery showroom, you're now looking at the bigger haystack. It's like instead of one needle from the haystack, you're now looking at the pile of needles that they've collected and put in one place. That's, again, in many ways, that's the same thing as like our Etsy shop. It's the same idea, even those are smaller vintage items.
We comb through the goods so you don't have to, essentially.
Yeah. And often the pieces that aren't valuable antiques educate just as much or more in the background experience of appraisal. Yeah. Cataloging seemingly endless, like not valuable, not old, not original, faux, fakes, counterfeits, having to go through all of those. That's something that we do in contemporary reproductions of older objects, things of that nature. that is something that the average collector is just not going to spend their time doing. So it's just one more level of the asset of working with an appraiser, dealer, buying from an antique shop, buying from a vintage shop, online or in person.
Yeah.
The background in doing this creates a wealth of knowledge in objects that most collectors just aren't going to have the time for and aren't going to do. It's just not going to be a part of their lives. So people often think just the mere mention of working with an antiques dealer, like William and I, or others like us, that when they aren't used to retaining an associate like that, which really, okay, an associate of a dealer, an antiques firm, right? It means helper. That's all it means. Exactly. It means you're paying. It's just like buying French fries at McDonald's. You're paying for a service that someone has to help you do because you're not cutting the fries, then frying the fries before you eat the fries. You're paying a fee in order to have said good established and brought to you to market. Same idea when you're working with an appraiser or a dealer and you're retaining them as your associate. It just sounds very fancy. I feel like so many people, unfortunately, are put off by that or held at arm's length. And it's really unfortunate. So I just want to talk about it. When individuals aren't from a background and doing things like this, they generally react to hiring our services, like industry services, as some kind of elite luxury or exorbitant frivolity, like a silliness. Like, who would do that?
Right.
And well, I'll tell you who the people with all the best stuff do it. Because they figured it out. That's how you do that. So when people say things like, oh, I could never hire an antique dealer for myself or for my household or for my small boutique hotel or whatever, because it's like such a luxury, or retain a buyer's associate or patronize a firm, a large auction house, or attend a large auction house's auction showing. It's funny because it's my belief that kind of knee-jerk response, I mean, it's not funny, it's kind of tragic. When I say funny, sometimes I mean woefully horrid, but
that's one word.
It's one word for it. So it's because it's almost coming from, it's like a knee-jerk response from this cultural conditioning that has taught people to think things are out of their reach. Mm-hmm. Or that they're not worthy of having these delightful historic objects, of like the history and the arts and culture in their lives for some absurd reason, or that they should feel ashamed or embarrassed to not know about them yet and be actively wanting to seek more knowledge in them.
Right.
No. You know who my favorite person in a room is when I'm in a new group of people, say like a cocktail party? Mm-hmm. The person who says something phonetically because they read it in a book and no one's ever said it to them before. And I swear, you will see someone like, I had someone do this to me the other day, where there was like a group of 5 people talking and they said quinoa. And they kept saying quinoa. No, that salad stuff that you put in salad, it's really good for you. It's quinoa. And then someone was like, oh, you mean quinoa? And it was very rude. Mm-hmm. It was abrasive, that response. And everyone was like, oh, yeah, that's not how you pronounce it. I'm like, why are you laughing? Yeah. That person just showed me they are the most intelligent person here. Right. They are not surrounded by that vernacular. They've never come into contact. They had to go seek it out for themselves as something new that no one brought forward to them with the knowledge of it. And then they went and tried it, loved it, but didn't know how to pronounce it and are trying to pronounce it phonetically. That's my favorite person in that room. I am not kidding. Yeah. So, but again, it's that strange mindset culturally, very often in North America, of almost this passive-aggressive shaming of people for not already knowing things. Yeah. Which, no. Like, you can enjoy these things. You can learn about these things. Yes. These things can improve your life. I truly believe that. So, anyway, it's unfathomable to me, and it's unfortunate that there's this sense of gatekeeping, aristocrats only exclusion around things like antiques and other fine vintage or designer collectibles, even modern ones. But it's a fact. It's an unfortunate fact. So there is no necessary correlation between high wealth and propriety. You don't have to be wealthy to be a gentleman. Right. Who knows how to behave in a social circumstance. You don't have to be an aristocrat to be a gentle lady.
Yeah.
Who knows how to use the fine goods in her home that are high quality to make a wonderful meal for her guests and truly enjoy that act and even know the history of those objects involved in that act. Like this piece of Pyrex with this pattern is from 1960.
Yeah.
And just as one more asset to something that your guests can enjoy in your home that creates your unique style, or that you have some history of the arts in American ceramics. Or so like I just
that makes sense.
I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm going off on a little bit of tangent. History and culture doesn't have to be blue-blooded.
No.
Anyone can do these things. Anyone can learn about these things. You can seek out credible assistance from others to learn about them as well. Absolutely. Or if you don't have the time. So hiring a credible antiques dealer, here's the reality too. It will save you money. People have this reaction to it, like it's so costly or so expensive. I've seen the same with appraisers, and it makes me feel bad for the appraisers I know, and for when we're appraising objects for patrons for a fee, because people will say, "Oh, appraisers." They talk about them the way they talk about lawyers. Honestly, someone who's dedicated themselves to studying the law, possibly spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on that education that they're now in debt until they die for, and then they're being just bashed for being this type of a person. But it's the truth of the matter is, a good appraiser, an established appraiser, a worthy one, just like a worthy dealer.
Right.
So we're not talking about the unethical ones, and they're out there. But a good one is going to save you money. That's the point of having them do the appraisal. So a dealer is going to save you money, a good dealer, and an appraiser is going to make you more money than you would have without them. So they're actually, either way, it's the opposite of cost prohibitive. It's helping you.
Right.
In a very real way to pay them a small fee in order to make even more, retain even more, or spend less on the same valuable object. So you don't have to have a ton of money at your disposal to find worthy, wonderful things, or to find the help necessary to bring those sorts of objects into your life. You probably, if you don't have a lot of time for the education, will need to reach out to an antique shop or an antique dealer or a firm or an appraiser if you're having to go through your grandparents' things that have passed on. Same idea. There's no real wall between you and the perceived gentry other than this false implication set by better than, less than mentalities. You can, inquire about our private services. We have them. Just shoot us an email.
We do.
It's Dead Gentry Collectibles. I think it's all one word.
At gmail.com.
There you go. See, it's a free email. We didn't even spend money on the email. You shouldn't spend money inquiring about our services, but you just shoot us an email. I think it's spelled with an I. It's like COLL collectible. Yeah, the collectibles has an I, not an A, because there are two ways to spell it.
Yes.
But anyway, you can do that, and then you can get on our well, it's kind of like our first dibs, the Dapper Deads. List, which is just you get on our first dibs list. That's all it is. Shoot us an email, put your name on it, and then maybe you have another reason for emailing us. And I'm not saying don't email us for those reasons, whatever they might be. You might want other services, more privatized or more expensive. This is a free service we offer, and if you just give us a way to contact you, we prefer by email. We prefer not to have to call or text people directly. Honestly, it's insane and impossible. But and you just say something you want. And that could be your first email to us. A lot of people are shy, believe it or not, even in electronic correspondence.
Right. Shy
reaching out to an antique dealer or appraiser for the first time. So shoot us an email with your name and then something you're actively searching for.
Yeah. And we'll keep our eyes out for it when we're doing all of our work.
Yeah.
We'll include the email and email link in the description of the video.
Oh, I guess William will be doing that. I'm very bad at doing the descriptions of the videos. I've written some truly absurd ones. They're like one sentence, like watch Lex drink too much coffee. Yeah, it could be. I want a 1990s vintage Charizard. Good luck. You're gonna sit on the list for a while.
Right.
But it could be. I don't know. I really prefer. There's so many items flooding through my mind when I say that. It's hard to...
Like purple Fenton glass.
Yes, plum iridescent Fenton. And you don't have to be that specific. Maybe it's just, I want to go on the list for fine Fenton pieces or colored Fenton pieces or only a Fenton vase.
Yeah.
Or a melon Fenton form in a specific color or not. But basically give us one type of object.
Exactly.
As detailed or not detailed as you want, but your name, one type of object, and here's what's going to happen. So now you've paid nothing. We will actively look for that object on purpose for you. And then I think we're at like 5% or something. If we find it, here's what happens. So let's say you ask for, I want a piece of purple Fenton vase.
Right.
So we actively will look it out. We'll actually go to estate sales we might not have otherwise gone to in order to find that piece. And then what we'll do is, if it's within your price range, you could also give us a price range, but you don't have to. You don't have to. But if you do, if it's within your price range, we're going to pick it up immediately. And then here's what we're going to do. Before it gets listed anywhere, before we sell it to anyone else, even other people on the list, because it's your object, that it's like within your category or it's your specific thing, we're going to shoot you an email and saying we have it. So you get private first dibs on purchasing it before it goes to our public Etsy page, before we tell other patrons about it, before we sell it to our elite patrons in a lot of many fine objects, possibly for the decoration of a larger acreage estate. Yeah. So what we will set it aside and you will get first dibs. And it stays, I think it's at 7 days or something, where for 7 days you get first dibs to email us back and say that you want it. Once you buy an object, like I just call them Dapper Deads. It's just the name of the list, Dapper Dead list. But once you've bought, so once you're on the list because you sent us an email that just said, I want a purple vase, and then we contact you back and say, we found this purple vase.
Right.
Once you buy it, once you choose to buy something that we've retained for you, you earn another slot. So you buy the purple vase, and then now you're saying, I want another purple vase, and with my second slot, I want vintage Hot Wheels toys. Right? So, and then we will act, and you don't have to buy them. You're under no risk to buy them. Although, if it is something very fine or very expensive, we will often not purchase it unless you immediately contact us and say, yes, I want you to pick up that $1,500 object. I have every intention of buying it from you. So that's a little bit different. But generally, if you've changed your mind and now we have this object and you don't want it, that just means you don't get to retain another spot on the list.
Right.
And you're out nothing. However, if we do find your object and you choose to buy it, it's going to, you get first dibs, you get this private, you earn another slot if you purchase it. And I literally think the rate we are charging is 5%. Most auction houses in our state are charging 15%. Yeah. Which is insane. And I don't think it's the norm nationally. I've looked into it. But most auction houses, even fine ones, are charging 10. So we charge half of that for a far more privatized service.
For your personal proxies.
Yeah, for our personal, basically we're your personal proxies. And we'll make it a priority to go find it, seek it out, and then offer it to you privately by email first, which is pretty cool. Some of the nicest like Star Wars pieces for Star Wars collectors, Batman comics, the very old like Silver Age, they all go to the Dead Dappers list because people have those items listed and they get first dibs on them. So, and again, it's so much less than most auction houses' processing fees that they charge on top of commissions and on top of other fees and on top of, it's just,
for sure.
Why would you do that and have access to one object maybe that you might want once a year if you happen to pay attention versus telling us an object you want and we'll keep searching for it.
Yeah.
Everywhere throughout our state in person, everywhere through all the online auctions we attend, everywhere through all the lot and estate sales. Like, it's just, I don't know why more people don't do it.
I agree.
But the people who know.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. It's like being an exclusive member without having to pay a membership fee.
Right.
And for most people, it's how they start a relationship with us as well and then become more comfortable with other things that they may need or want us to do. So,
yeah, it's a good gig.
There's a few reasons we offer that. I could get into it a little bit. It's useful to our clients, honestly. It's incredibly useful to specific collectors who are looking for specific things.
Yeah.
It actually speeds up the process of our finding what our patrons are specifically seeking, because now we know what to look for and we can bring more of it to market faster. And then we're not risking as much possible time or damage storing an object maybe for a year or longer, waiting for that very specific buyer for a very fine piece. So in that way, it saves us time and possible damage to an object, which we really appreciate. But it lets us get to know our clientele. It does. A little bit, we get to deal with you on a slightly more personal level. So we might not have time every day to talk about antiques or to make free YouTube videos. We do try, honestly. We really do try to make quite a bit of content about vintage objects and antique objects, but we work and travel a lot.
For sure.
Like a lot. So having a list of priority patrons and their unique preferences gives us the chance to know a little more about our lovely clientele.
Right.
Which is all of you, lovely ladies and gents. And honestly, and then when we get a piece that somebody really wanted to that person, it brings us a sense of achievement in our work. It's so rewarding.
It's nice, yeah.
Yeah, which again helps us keep doing our jobs well. I think, honestly, that you get to bring like this worthy object forward through time.
Yep.
Pass it through the hands of its newest steward, where it will be protected and cared for well for another decade, generation, possibly a century. So, the objects we sell aren't just desirable for their monetary value. I think this is something most people involved in vintage and collecting and antique object procurement know, but it's not just about craftsmanship. It's also about history for the character and identity of each object.
Yeah.
That every object has a story, many stories possibly before it, of the lives, of the provenance, of the hands it's passed through before. And knowing that it touched those lives and then will continue to live on.
Right.
It's an important thing. So, but possibly the greatest reason we offer this service is because the Gentry is dead. Like, everyone can and should have access to retaining the services of someone like us. And this is a free service we can offer to everyone to kind of break down some of that classism, some of that, it's everyone can and should enjoy a rich life full of culture and the arts and education. Everyone can have access to a service where whoever you are, whatever age, whatever income bracket you may or may not be a part of, whatever background, whatever type of thing you're looking for, no matter how curio, no matter how weird, right? No judgment, nothing illegal, but no judgment. You can do this. You can shoot us an email and you can become a part of this. So class system segregation and the divisiveness it perpetuates persists everywhere. William stepped out of the room for a moment to get a drink, but he would absolutely agree with that assessment. In education and the arts, all too often in grossly subtle ways that society doesn't ever want to seem to deal with or pay attention to. So overwhelmingly, it begins with a lack of knowledge. And now he's walked back into the room. He's like, what on earth are you talking about? So sometimes because information is kept away from those who will best benefit from it. This is not just about antiques at this point that I'm talking about, but
I'm with you.
Yeah. Sometimes because there aren't enough people aware of how important and necessary it is to make and fight for knowledge being available and easily accessible to others, and they let some things go, thinking that it's not a privilege but more of a given, which it absolutely is not. You have to work for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm in a totally different place in my mindset now from talking antiques. But you can be a priority patron, what we call a Dapper Dead. You can be on the Dapper Dead list, retaining the procurement services of a private antiques dealer. That's literally what you'll be doing for free.
Exactly.
And you can tell people you're doing that.
Right.
I'm a priority patron with an antiques firm, retaining the services of a private dealer for my household or for me. Or for,
That's awesome.
So that's literally what's going on when you're on our client list, and It isn't hard. It isn't impossible. It doesn't cost anything. Well, it costs the 5% if you choose to make the purchase because it's like a finder's fee. And again, it's less than an auction house fee.
Yeah.
So, and that's all it takes. And you can definitely do that. You can drop us a message. You may have to put up with, like, if you join our, like, Facebook in order to contact us, or a Discord server, which I don't think is fully operational yet, but it will be. You might have to put up with the odd dusty joke, like Antiques joke, or silly Antiques Roadshow meme. I do that sometimes.
Gotta keep it light sometimes.
In order to hang out with us. But honestly, you'd have to do that even if you were like in the 1500s British countryside and we were taking you to an estate. We'd still be telling dusty jokes. So it's just, that's what's going to happen. Our goal, if nothing else, is to give everyone a place to start, to improve their personal daily environments with fine and historic objects. If anyone's made it this far through my TED Talk, I am very impressed. To delve into their particular passion of collectibles that inspire them. Everyone deserves to be able to do that. I think, to watch some casual YouTube videos for free content, we try to do that, to feel anything but intimidated or outclassed, right, or held at arm's length from the supposed royalty. It's I should stop. I should bite my tongue. Maybe just being able to join our list is like the first step that inspires someone later to be able to then attend a fine collectibles charity auction.
Yeah.
And if we're what helped get someone there, I'm thrilled. That's my day made. Yep. So, and maybe, just maybe, you're now the most informed person there. Maybe you're more informed than the guy with the gavel because, you know, you were watching YouTube videos for 2 years and retained our services and started your own collection and learned all about it. So, because you wanted to learn more, which is fine. You know, maybe education doesn't just belong to the gentry and they're all dead and you're the gentry now, and that's okay.
I agree.
So, I'm like mumbling under my breath at this point. No one's going to be able to hear that. But William and I are very much of the mindset, as our the best, most knowledgeable, I'd say most trustworthy, right, appraisers and dealers. Not all of them are, but the power of money, it's a whole nother topic. To really influence someone's moral compass in strange ways. You know how it doesn't bother me? I have been very much trained in the mindset of, I can't take it with me. And I don't know why other people don't hold this perspective in good keeping. Yeah. You know, they're not cultivating their minds very well if they're not reminding themselves of that. Then it has no influence over you. Exactly. But anyway, art belongs in our lives. Let's get back to the positive. Art belongs in our lives. We believe that the appreciation of history, culture, and the arts that antiques, vintage objects can bring forward to people is fascinating, that it enhances the lives of those who bring those things into their homes. Right. Things like antique objects or visual arts, graphic design, comic books, stories like Star Wars are of massive importance to the culture and its perception of itself and its morality systems. So we are very much of the mindset that society as a whole is improved by history, culture, the arts, knowledge, remaining aware of these things. Yes. And that not only is it important to society, but that society needs you. I feel like I'm talking to a microphone, but needs our patrons, needs the people listening to cherish and protect and really learn and care about these things as well. Right. So. Absolutely. That's it. That's my TED Talk.
I love the TED Talk.
I'd be amazed if anyone got through all that. DeadGentryCollectibles.com. No. Yes. No. DeadGentryCollectibles at Gmail.
At gmail.com is the email.
There we go.
We're on Etsy.
There's a Facebook.
There's a Facebook.
There's a Macari.
There's obviously a YouTube channel.
There's a YouTube channel. Yeah. I don't know if you can message through YouTube directly. I might have that shut off. I don't know. Yeah. But you could definitely use the collectibles. Is it with a, the spelling collectibles is with an I?
Yes. It'll be linked in the description.
William says it'll be linked in the description, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers.